At my age, I've collected many memories, but there's one decision that still weighs heavily on my heart: letting fear stop me from walking after a fall. It seemed like the safest choice at the time, but the truth is, it changed everything in ways I never imagined. It all started a little over a year ago, with something so simple. I was just reaching for a book on a low shelf, lost my balance for a second, and found myself on the floor with a broken hip. The pain was sharp, but the fear was overwhelming. My children, bless their hearts, were immediately there, their faces etched with worry. "Mom, you need to take it easy," they said. "No more risks. Let's make sure this never happens again." And I believed them. It felt right, that promise of safety. So I listened. I stayed off my feet more, moved less, always cautious, always aware of the next potential stumble. I truly thought I was doing myself a favor, protecting myself from another fall. But what I didn't realize then was that this safety came with a hidden steep cost, a cost that slowly, insidiously, began to steal my life from me. Before you make similar choices, I want to share 6 hard truths I learned, truths I wish someone had told me, because once you let fear take hold, getting your life back isn't as simple as you think. Hard truth number 1. Losing my independence, one small step at a time. After my fall, everyone, myself included, focused on asterisk safety. "Just take it easy, Eleanor," they'd say. "No need to push yourself." And for a while, that sounded like good advice. I started limiting my movements to just the living room, then the short, careful walk to the kitchen. My once cherished routines, like a morning walk to check on my little rose bushes, or even just making my own coffee, slowly faded. The garden outside, once my pride, became a blur through the window. It wasn't a sudden, dramatic loss, but a quiet, creeping retreat into a smaller world. I looked out, a faint longing in my eyes, at the spaces of my home that were now just memories of movement. But this, safety, came with an unseen cost: dependence. I remember watching my caregiver effortlessly reach for a box of cereal on the top shelf in my kitchen, a shelf I'd always used. Or having to ask for help to water my favorite houseplant, a task that once gave me so much quiet joy. It's frustrating, isn't it? Needing help for things you've done independently your entire life. Each time I had to ask, each time someone else did a simple task for me, it felt like a small, invisible chain being added. My hands, once so capable and busy, now often lay still in my lap. Ask yourself, are you truly ready to give up those small, everyday freedoms that make life yours? The loss of physical independence quickly extended to losing control over my own life and choices. My days stopped being my own. Instead, they became dictated by the availability of assistance, or the fear of what might happen if I tried something alone. I couldn't just decide to take a spontaneous walk around the block, or run a quick errand to the corner market. I remember one afternoon my friend Sarah called, asking if I wanted to join her for a quick coffee. My heart ached to say yes, but the logistics felt insurmountable. Getting ready, getting out, coordinating a ride, it all seemed too much. I politely declined, and watched my phone as if it held the ghost of a missed opportunity, another piece of my autonomy slipping away. My home, once a sanctuary of freedom and choice, slowly became a gilded cage. The fear of falling, meant to keep me safe, had built invisible bars around my life. It's a hard truth. When you prioritize absolute safety over movement, you risk sacrificing the very independence that makes your life worth living. You yield control not to a person, but to a circumstance, and once that control is gone, it's incredibly difficult to reclaim. So if you're letting fear stop you from walking, ask yourself, what is the true cost of that perceived safety? Are you prepared to pay it with your freedom? Because the truth is, your entire world changes. Hard truth number 2, the one that truly cuts deep, is isolation's deepening grip. Before the fall, my social calendar was full. Bridge games, book club meetings, a weekly coffee with Sarah, my oldest friend. I loved being out, seeing people, feeling connected. But after the accident, the fear made me say no to almost everything. It's just for a little while, I told myself, until I'm stronger. But a little while turned into months. At first, my friends were diligent. Calls, cards, offers to visit. But as I stopped going out, as I became less present in their lives, the calls became less frequent. The invitations stopped coming. It wasn't that they forgot me. Life just kept moving without me. And I, trapped by fear, felt the echoes of those friendships fade, like a quiet song ending. Then there's family. You believe your family will always be there, a constant presence. And they try, bless their hearts. My daughter Maria came by often at first. My grandchildren, when they could squeeze it in. But as the weeks stretched into months, their visits became shorter, more rushed. Phone calls started replacing actual visits, then quick texts. I'd hear them say, "Mom, you're doing so well, you sound great." And I knew they meant it. They assumed I was fine, that I was adjusting. But the painful truth is, even with the deepest love, the out of sight, out of mind principle can slowly take hold. I remember last Christmas, sitting alone, watching the snow fall outside, while the phone stayed silent. Everyone had plans. I understood, truly. But understanding doesn't warm a quiet house. The hardest part, I think, is the weight of unspoken needs. There are so many evenings, sitting here in my room, the house quiet except for the hum of the refrigerator. My phone is right there on the nightstand, a gateway to a voice, a conversation, a reminder that I'm not entirely alone. I'd pick it up, scroll through the contacts, my finger hovering over Maria's name, or my son, David's. But then I'd stop. I didn't want to be a burden. I didn't want to sound needy, to remind them that I was here, waiting, hoping for a visit that might never come. So I'd put the phone down, the screen going dark, and a heavy feeling would settle over me. This was my life now, wanting to be remembered but too afraid to ask. A silent plea, unheard. If you're letting fear hold you back from moving, ask yourself, are you prepared for the profound loneliness? Because once you stop moving, once you're not out in the world, your physical presence fades. And when your physical presence fades, your connection to the world, to your friends, and even to your family starts to thin. It's not a conscious choice from them, not a lack of love. It's just how life works. Are you ready for the emotional toll of that isolation? Are you prepared for the silence that settles in when the world outside keeps moving without you? Because the truth is, once you're out of sight, it's easier than you think to become out of mind. Hard truth 3. Losing my sense of purpose. When I first let fear stop me from walking, I thought I was just changing how I moved around my home. I didn't realize I was also slowly changing why I lived. At home, before the fall, I had my routines. My little garden patch needed tending. My knitting basket always had a project. And there was always a new recipe to try in the kitchen. Even the small things, like watering my hydrangeas or baking a batch of cookies, gave me a reason to get up in the morning. But after the fall, those daily rituals, those connections to what made me Simon Aim, slowly disappeared. My gardening tools grew dusty, the knitting needles lay still, and my cookbooks stayed closed. The days, once full and vibrant, began to stretch out, an empty canvas with nothing meaningful to fill them. At first I told myself it was nice to finally relax. No more bending, no more standing for long periods. Just rest. But after a few weeks, that rest started to feel like something else entirely. It was a slow drift into apathy. My mind, once eager to learn a new stitch or plan a meal, began to slow down. I found myself staring blankly at the television, a book lying unread on the table beside me. The motivation to even pursue mental activities, let alone physical ones, began to wane. I saw it in others, too, friends who had once been so vibrant and engaged, now just waiting for the day to pass, waiting for someone to visit, waiting for life to happen to them instead of living it. I remember my neighbor, Arthur. He was a passionate gardener, his yard a riot of color and life. Even after he had a bad knee and started using a cane, he'd insist on tending to his roses. But then he had a fall, a minor one, and the fear took hold. He stopped going outside. His wife, bless her heart, tried to bring pots inside for him, but it wasn't the same. I watched as his once strong, soil-stained hands slowly became idle in his lap. "I feel useless, Eleanor," he told me one day, his voice barely a whisper, his gaze fixed on a wilting houseplant his wife had placed on his windowsill, and I knew exactly what he meant. When you no longer have something to care for, something to work toward, life starts to lose its meaning. The spirit slows down, and soon you start to feel like just another person in a place where time moves, but nothing really changes. When you let fear stop you from moving, it's not just your body that suffers, it's your very essence. It's the feeling of being needed, of having a contribution to make, no matter how small. Purpose isn't about filling time. It's about fighting to hold on to the things that make you feel alive. If you're considering letting fear dictate your movements after a fall, ask yourself, what truly gives your life meaning? Because once you give up those daily rituals, those passions, finding purpose isn't as simple as just trying a new hobby. It's about fighting to hold on to the things that make you feel alive, to keep your spirit from wilting. Don't let your fear turn your vibrant life into an empty canvas. Hard Truth 4. Declining health faster than expected. Before my fall, I was doing quite well for 78. I still enjoyed my morning walks, kept up with my garden, and could handle all my errands without a second thought. My body felt like snow mine, capable and strong. But after I broke my hip and the initial pain subsided, a different kind of change began. At first, it felt almost pleasant. No more worrying about cooking, my daughter brought meals. No more standing for long periods, I had plenty of time to rest in my favorite armchair. It felt like I was being taken care of, and I told myself this period of rest was exactly what I needed to heal properly. I convinced myself I was doing the safe thing, the smart thing. But that feeling of ease, that comfort of not having to move much, it was a deception. My body, quietly, insidiously, began to weaken. I didn't see it then, but I was trading immediate comfort for long-term decline. Now I try to stand, and my hands grip the armrests of this chair like they're lifelines. Just reaching for the book on the side table, a task I once did without thinking, now feels like a small struggle. My legs, which used to carry me through parks and grocery aisles, feel stiffer, heavier. Every movement, every shift, is accompanied by a quiet protest from my joints. It's like the muscles I spent a lifetime building simply vanished. They didn't disappear in a sudden snap like my hip. They faded away, day by day, as I sat, rested, and avoided putting them to work. The less I did for myself, the weaker I became. And it wasn't just me. I've seen it happen to others too. People who walked in on their own 2 feet were suddenly relying on wheelchairs. The less we move, the more help we seem to need, and the faster our independence slips away. I remember my neighbor Alice. She was 81, a few years older than me, but full of spark. She used to walk around our small community park every single morning, rain or shine, insisting that she wasn't going to let a number define her. Then she had a minor fall, nothing too serious, just a stumble. But the fear was serious. Her family, well-meaning, told her to take it easy, to rest more. And Alice, always so independent, started to do just that. First, her walks got shorter. Then she started using a walker, just for support. A few months later, I saw her being pushed in a wheelchair. One day she looked at me with such a profound sadness in her eyes and said, "Eleanor, I don't know when it happened, but I feel like I aged 10 years in just a few months." Her spirit, which once shone so brightly, was visibly diminished. And that's exactly what it felt like for me and for Alice and for so many others. When you stop using your body, you start losing it. It's a vicious cycle, you see. You fall, you get scared, you stop moving to feel safe. But then, your muscles weaken, your balance worsens, and your risk of falling, actually, increases. So you move even less, out of even greater fear, and the decline accelerates. It's a paradox. The very thing you do to protect yourself, becoming inactive, is often the fastest path to needing more help, not less. We are led to believe that making things easier for ourselves is always a good thing, but sometimes what seems easier in the short term robs us of our strength and mobility in the long run. If you're considering letting fear dictate your movement, ask yourself, will you still have the motivation to keep your body strong when everything is set up to make life effortless? Because once you slow down, getting back up isn't as easy as you think. If I had known how quickly I would lose my strength, how rapidly my physical capabilities would diminish just by giving in to the fear of another fall, I would have fought harder. I would have pushed myself to stay active, to keep moving, to find safe ways to exercise, even when I didn't feel like it. Movement isn't just about convenience. It's about surviving. It's about maintaining the basic functions that keep you connected to the world and to yourself. So, if you're watching this, I urge you, don't make my mistake. Don't let the fear of a fall lead you down a path where your body betrays you faster than you ever imagined. Fight for your strength. Fight for your movement. Because it's not just about living. It's about truly living every day. Now, this fifth hard truth, this one cuts deep because it's not just about what you lose physically, but what you lose inside your own head. Before my fall, I was confident. I was capable. But after, a new voice moved in, right behind my eyes. It wasn't my voice, not truly. It was the voice of fear, whispering, "No, don't try. It's too risky, Eleanor." It told me not to stand on my own, not to reach for that glass, not to even think about walking to the kitchen. That little walking stick leaning against my wall now? It feels less like an aid and more like a symbol of what I won't let myself do. I look at it, and then I look away. I'm trapped, not just by my legs, but by my own mind, convinced I can't do what I once did with ease. And this fear, it touches everything. It touches your privacy. I never thought about it much before, but when you need help with the most personal tasks, showering, getting dressed, even just using the bathroom, your sense of dignity starts to fray at the edges. My helpers are kind, truly they are, but it's not easy to accept assistance for things you've done independently your entire life. I look at myself in the mirror sometimes, a thoughtful, slightly sad expression, and I see a stranger. I see someone who needs help where she once needed none. It's not just about modesty. It's about the quiet understanding that your body, your routines, your most private moments are no longer entirely your own. That constant presence, however well-meaning, slowly diminishes that personal space, that sense of being completely in charge of yourself. It's like being spoken to, not as Eleanor, a person who's lived a full life, but as the patient or the senior who fell. I've had family members, trying to be helpful, tell me what I shouldn't do, or even finish my sentences when I was perfectly capable of speaking for myself. They mean well, I know, but it's a quiet humiliation. You feel your opinions, your abilities being dismissed, not out of malice, but from a place of concern that ends up infantilizing you. I remember one afternoon my niece was visiting, and I was trying to explain how I preferred my tea, but she just smiled and said, "Oh, you just relax, Auntie. I know how you like it," and poured it anyway. It was such a small thing, but in that moment, I felt like a child. I just sighed, a slight shake of my head, and let it go. And each time you let it go, a little piece of your confidence goes with it. This erosion of dignity and independence, it doesn't just stop at personal care or being talked over. It extends to your very belief in yourself. All those little moments of needing help, of feeling dismissed, of letting fear dictate your choices, they add up. Slowly but surely, you start to doubt your own judgment, your own capabilities. My world, the one I used to navigate with such certainty, started to shrink. Not just the physical space I could move in, but my belief in myself to navigate Tree's world, inside or out. I'd look at my reflection, a slight questioning gaze, and wonder who that woman was. My shoulders, once held with purpose, now seemed to carry a slight slump, burdened by the weight of self-doubt. It's a profound loss, this dwindling self-belief, and it makes every decision feel bigger, every step feel heavier. Once your dignity and confidence are compromised, they are incredibly hard to reclaim. It's not like fixing a broken bone. It's mending something deep inside, something that defines who you are. The fear of falling might keep you physically safe in the short term, but the cost to your spirit, to your sense of self, is immeasurable. So, if you're letting fear hold you back, if you're letting others make all your choices because it seems safer or easier, ask yourself this: are you truly prepared to give up the core of who you are? Are you prepared to lose that inner knowing, that self-belief, that spark of independence, all for the sake of perceived safety? Because once it's gone, getting it back is a battle many of us never fully win. When I first decided to take it easy after my fall, I told myself it was just for a little while. I thought of it as a temporary break, a necessary pause to heal and recover. I believed that once I felt stronger, I could simply pick up where I left off, go back to my walks, my gardening, my busy days. But what I didn't realize was just how quickly that temporary break would become a permanent trap. It wasn't a pause at all. It was a slow, insidious slide into a pattern that became incredibly difficult to reverse. The longer I stayed in that safe, inactive space, the more my body and mind adapted to it, making the idea of climbing back out feel like an impossible mountain. I remember circling a date on my calendar, a hopeful mark for when I'd be back to normal. That date passed months ago, and I barely noticed. The truth is, once you stop moving, getting started again isn't just a matter of willpower. The physical weakness that sets in makes even short walks feel monumental. My legs, once strong enough to carry me through a bustling grocery store, now feel heavy and unsteady just walking to the kitchen. But it's not just the body, it's the mind, too. The fear of another fall, the ingrained habit of dependence, the erosion of confidence. These mental barriers become just as formidable as any physical limitation. I look out my front door sometimes, at the short path to my mailbox, and I feel a weariness that has nothing to do with my legs. It's the weight of the mental effort, the courage it would take to overcome that fear and truly step out again, unaided. That's the part nobody tells you. Moving less feels like a decision you can reverse. But for most people, it isn't. The longer you let fear keep you still, the harder it becomes to adjust to an active life again. Your body forgets, your mind doubts, and the world outside feels more daunting than ever. If you're considering letting fear dictate your movement after a fall, ask yourself, are you prepared for the possibility that once you stop moving, getting back might not be as simple as you think? Because once you settle into that inaction, the barriers to breaking free, whether physical or mental, can be harder to overcome than you expect. This comfortable chair, this quiet room, can slowly become your whole world. Looking back, I don't regret the years I've lived, or the wisdom they've brought, but I do deeply regret letting fear, after that fall, slowly dictate my choices. What I found was a life that slowly took away my independence, my connections, my purpose, and even my sense of self, all under the guise of safety. If I could do it over, I would have fought harder to stay active, explored more ways to get help without giving up my precious freedom, and made sure I truly understood the cost before letting fear take hold. If you're facing this decision, I hope you take the time to ask yourself, is this truly what's best for me? Or is it just what seems easiest right now? Because the life you have today, your routines, your independence, your choices, is worth holding on to for as long as you can. Thank you for joining me today. I'd love to hear from you. Leave a comment below and share one thing you learned today and how you plan to use it in your life. Your thoughts are important to us, so don't hesitate to share them. If you enjoyed this video and found it helpful, please like, subscribe, and share. Your support helps us continue creating good content to inform and inspire you. Thanks for watching, and we look forward to seeing you in the next video.